Welcome back to Kaely Daily. Today's question is, what are doula services?
This is Kaely Daily, the bi-weekly podcast about all things doula tips and ticks, where we answer one question about pregnancy, labor, postpartum, or lactation in order to have your journey in this parenting world be just a little bit more informed and filled with consent.
Hello and welcome back. I'm Kaely Harrod, the host of this beautiful podcast, Kaely Daily. I am a doula, childbirth educator, mom, and wife, and I am coming today with one more doula question. So we're in the series of all about doulas. What do doulas do? How do you hire one? What kind of things should you ask them? And it came to my attention that maybe we haven't even just answered the really basic question of like, what are doula services? Cool. What does that even mean? Now, I realize what is a doula is a question that we answered in season 1. So it's not that this is brand spanking new information, but I do think it's worth diving into a little bit. So what are doula services? Doula services are an extra layer of support in whatever area that you're using them in. So I sometimes joke that we need doulas for all different parts of life. And I'm only half joking because I actually think doulas would be lovely in all different parts of life. Like I would love a preteen parenting doula, right? Like people have death doulas, there's abortion doulas, there are illness doulas, there's cancer, like survivor kind of doula-ish companionship sort of stuff. What I think is lovely is having some kind of support that is for you in that time. Ideally, that support also has some knowledge or expertise around the time, right? Like, so I am a prenatal, postpartum birth expert, right? Like that's my field. That's what I do. That's what I love. That's what I research, etc. Right? So I am not a death doula because death is not my realm. That's not what I do. That's not what I'm trained in. That's not what I'm an expert in. Right? But we sometimes joke around that like doulas doula each other, right? We use it like it's a verb, where we like provide each other support, right? So that we know that our clients will have a doula if we are busy for some reason or something like that. So when you think about what doula services even are, at the very core of what they are, they're a layer of support. Now, that layer of support is for whatever time you hired that doula for, right? Like postpartum or abortion or birth or pregnancy or whatever it is, or all of those, depending on what your plan is, right? And so the idea is like, if you're hiring a postpartum doula should bring you a level of support and education in the postpartum time and in preparation for the postpartum time that feels a little bit cozier. I know that's kind of a silly word to use for this, but like it feels better, right? It feels like more prepared maybe, or like wrapped up a bit, like in the most wonderful way, right? Now I realize as I'm saying that not all doulas are really great at that. And I say that with a lot of caution because I love doulas. I think doulas are great, right? But not all of us are great, right? And there are some doulas that don't do this work really well. And I say that to say, like, that's how a doula should make you feel, like well supported, well educated, well informed, and just taken care of. And if that's not the feeling that you're getting from your doula or from the doulas that you're interviewing, then it's okay to keep looking if you want to find that, okay? The other thing about a doula is that because we're not medical support, we're sort of like, if you think about your medical team, your midwife or your OB or your nurses or whoever is a part of that team, as your team that's like looking at the safety and looking at the well-being physically, right? Looking at like the danger physically, medically of different things. your doula is kind of the buffer for any emotional, spiritual, physical support in the midst of that. So where like maybe your nurse might be primarily concerned with getting your blood pressure and your temperature in a certain time in labor and like managing the logistics of that medical portion, your doula at the same time might be like giving you very specific pressure in some part of your body, like on your back, or even like squeezing your hand a certain way, because that like emotional and relational support is also very important, right? So in a beautiful, perfect scenario on a birth team, for instance, a doula should be like a lovely space that is not otherwise filled, right? So it's a second person or even a third person maybe who's non-medical, not looking at just the purely like, logistics data stuff of birth, but also like looking at you holistically at like, how are you doing? How is your partner doing? How are you feeling about how things are going? And that aspect of support, which kind of frees up the medical team to do their medical stuff because you have that emotional support elsewhere. And then we can kind of all fit like nicely into our little roles that make this like beautiful puzzle, kind of like we each are a piece that make this whole picture really lovely. So obviously, not all births function that way. I recognize that. Not all postpartum experiences are that. Even in some really rough and rocky times, a doula should feel like a lovely, cozy layer of comfort. And I don't mean to say that to say like our job is super fluffy and like, all of that. No, absolutely not. Like sometimes we're the person that's going like, hey, listen, I need you to get your head in the game, right? Like I need you to come back to us and focus and push this baby out, right? Like you can do this. I know you can do this. You are a strong person and I believe in you. And I want you to do this with us and for your baby right now, for yourself, right? And so it's not that we're all just like, you're amazing, that's wonderful, you're wonderful, although we do a fair amount of that, at least I do a fair amount of that. But it also can sometimes be some like tough love or some like, really firm encouragement or some caution. Sometimes it's like, I'm concerned about that. Like we need to give your team a call, like that doesn't seem normal to me. I think we should chat with the midwife or the OB. And so it's not all fluffy, right? But it should bring a layer of reassurance that feels really lovely. That's what I mean when I say that, right? Is that it should feel reassuring and great, even if it's a hard scenario that you're like, it would have been worse if we didn't have our doula with us. So that's kind of a rough synopsis in my mind of what doula services are, right? We do have a number of questions still left in this doula series, so we're going to be on this doula kick for a couple more episodes, like I think 5 or 6-ish. But if you have a doula question, I would love to answer it. Please shoot me a message on Instagram. And I would really love to connect with you and hear like what your question is and add that to the list before we jump onto the postpartum series. So in the meantime, I wish you lovely, well-informed, consent-filled birth and postpartum times.
These episodes are edited and produced by Kaely Harrod, as I'm sure you can probably tell. And our amazing music is credited in the show notes as well. So we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. And in the meantime, have wonderful and consent-filled births.